So excited. Welcome to another episode of Mujer de Exito Unbounded, which means woman of success without limits. Today, I'm sitting down with a mujer, and she is a mujer de éxito, whose journey is proof that reinvention has no expiration date. Her name is Denise Soler Cox. Let me tell you about her, right? Denise went from stay at home mom to an award winning filmmaker, top 100 podcaster, one of the most sought after keynote speakers in the country. I'm reading this if you see me because there's a lot. She's spoken on more than 400 stages, including 2 TEDx talks and South by Southwest in Austin, and helping leaders. And she loves helping leaders and teams get unstuck and build what she calls high quality cultures. That is her trademark. And that's where that is spaces where people actually thrive. Right. So it sounds like to me like this awesome think tank. Her podcast, The Selfish Latina, was named a featured host by Apple Podcasts in North America, with listeners in over 32 countries. El día que yo llegue in 32 countries, I'm gonna get on my knees and say thank you, right? But she's worked with brands like Ralph Lauren, Amazon, Microsoft, Chase, L'Oreal, Starbucks, and her voice has reached audiences through NBC Nightly News, Forbes, CNN, Telemundo, y Univision. Help me, ayúdenme a darle la bienvenida. Welcome, Denise. I am so honored to have you here on the Mujer de Exito Unbounded show. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, well, thanks so much for having me, Marty. I'm thrilled. And just so you know, hearing you share about me it's a nice reminder because sometimes, just like everybody else, I get stuck in my head and with self-doubt. And if you're the type of person that keeps reaching for things, I think that you know exactly what I'm talking about. So it's so nice to go down memory lane and think, yeah, that is me. That I did do that. So thank you. And I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm a storyteller, and what started my career was a film that I made that came out 10 years ago called Being Enye. And it was and is about what it's like to be a part of the Latino diaspora and feel that tension between not feeling enough in either culture, where in the United States and in the homeland of our parents. And over the last 10 years, I was very fortunate that the film did very, very well and had me on stages, and then became a keynote speaker, and then was fortunate enough to write this book that we're here to talk about today.
Yes, and I am so excited. And I have some questions for you, and hopefully, for you, my listeners, las que me están escuchando aquí, que nos están escuchando, I did not give her the questions beforehand. So these are not canned answers. I want you to understand that I don't even edit the ums. I don't edit out any negative space. I don't edit out anything. Why? Because in the world of AI, it's so refreshing to just get authenticity. And if that authenticness means that I scratch my nose, or I laugh funny, or I cough, or I drink from my madre cup, then that's what it is. And
Yeah.
that is authenticity. So
Hmm.
here we go. Denise, tu libro se llama What Will They Say? Your
Yeah.
book is What Will They Say? And that question can either paralyze me, and I'm speaking to how that would speak to me, that either
Yeah.
can paralyze me as a woman or it can set me free. I've been thinking about that for a while, right?
Mm.
Since we chatted. So, what was the moment that you decided that that would be the title of your book, and why?
Yeah. So, I mean, the whole impetus to write the book, the inspiration behind the book were is this thing that I call the line of secrets and dreams, and it's a line that gets formed as I'm walking off the stage in two instances. One, for many years as we screened the film and I would do Q&As, a line would form afterwards, and then when I became a keynote speaker, the same thing would happen. And generally speaking, the line of secrets and dreams is filled with amazing, what I call high quality humans. And so people that appreciate the message, that want to take a selfie, that want to share something meaningful, what they loved about the film or about what I said or what have you. And on the line of secrets and dreams, some of the people would share dreams like, hey, I'd love to do this thing. I'd love to make my own version of a film. I'd love to write a book one day. I'd love to quit my job and, start a business doing whatever, right? Move around the world, do something that's radically different than whatever they were doing because I was a stay-at-home mom when I began production on my film. And I really started it from just not, I just decided I am going to do this. And a million decisions and a million risks were taken in order for the film to actually come to life. But it really did just start with a decision that I was going to do it. And so a lot of people found inspiration from that and also belief in themselves that something more was possible. And some of the people that would wait on the line would share with would share secrets with me. And so secrets that were really serious things that they'd been through. And I had no idea why this was happening. And like the introduction said, I've done over 400 events. And at every single event, at least one person would share a secret. And then the number got bigger. Sometimes it was smaller, but at least, let's say, 3, 4 people at every single event. And one of the things that happened was some of the people that shared secrets would also share dreams. So someone would say, this and this happened. I just feel like I wanted to let you know. I've never told anyone this before. And I'd love to write a book one day. I'd love to, do this incredible thing one day, but I can't because el que dirán, and or like los trapos sucios, or some other version of being concerned about what they will say. And it was said so many times as a barrier between someone's dream and what they thought was possible that it pissed me off. I'm just like, wait a second, we're all concerned about what we all will say, when who is we, who is saying all this stuff, right? And um but and so eventually, I just heard it enough times that I knew I've got to call the book What Will They Say, because it's the most sort of in your face way
Mm.
um, to introduce a book about taboos in our culture.
Taboos in our culture, and many, there are many. And
Yes.
and in the Latina culture, even I'm just talking the Latina culture. And what is
Yes.
Latina? To me, Latina means every Spanish speaking country, right? It just means all of those, right? And whatever dialect, it doesn't matter. So yes. Now, your I'm going to take you back to your podcast. Your
Yeah.
podcast, the Self, SELF, with a hyphen in the middle, ish Latina, was, this was a real honest story behind, you know somebody. But who was that self-ish Latina, and what was her story, and why do you think it resonated with so many women in 32 countries?
Yeah, well, I would say that I was the self-ish Latina. I felt like taking time to explore the ideas that I explored on the podcast was like crossing the line of another taboo, making it about us, right? Standing out from the crowd and talking about things that, in many ways, our culture shares not, teaches not to focus on these things. Why are you focusing on these things, right? And so, but before I go further, I want to also let people know that I love the culture. I love my own Latinidad My favorite audiences are always Latinas, and I love talking about this. And so when I share about this, though, I'm sharing specifically about the parts of the culture that I believe need an upgrade. Just like our phones need an
Mhm.
upgrade, like overnight, how we have to plug them in because there are bugs in the system. I believe that our cultura is so beautiful. It's my favorite in food, music, y todo. And there are some rules, cultural rules, that just don't serve women today. And
Yes.
those rules need an upgrade, just like our phones, right? And so I forgot what I was even saying. What question was I even answering? Because I want to make
How,
sure that I
how did
got that out.
how did you? I mean, how
Oh,
do
the
you?
selfish Latina.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So we were renaming the podcast because when the podcast first came out, I had no idea what I was doing. I started it actually before the film came out. So I think I started it in either 2014 or 2015, and it was just called at the time Project Enya, the Project Enya podcast. That because that's what the project was called,
Uh-huh.
and then the film would later be called Being Enya. And so when we wanted to basically rebrand the podcast, I was looking at everything that we had talked about up until that point and everything I wanted to talk about. And at the time, being called selfish at the time was something that was very triggering for me. Like the
Mm,
idea that someone might think I was selfish was, it would surely hurt my feelings. And so I had this kind of wild hair that I wanted to name the podcast Selfish, but not fully, right? And so
right.
that's why I said it's selfish. So
Right.
like not fully selfish, but I wanted to play on the idea that um, that the podcast would be about indulging in conversations about important things that sometimes in our culture are regarded as selfish to even think, to even discuss, to think about. There are more important things that we need to be building, more important things we need to be thinking about. And in my opinion, I wanted to talk, kind of pause things and talk about, these my own version at the time of the taboo subject that is actually in my book.
Oh, cool. That is so cool. And I love it, right? And then let me, so you've worked with giants like Amazon and Microsoft and L'Oreal. L'Oreal is probably one of my favorites. But anyway, and so what translates from storytelling and film into what these companies need from you as a speaker?
Yeah, good question. I at first didn't really understand it, frankly. I didn't understand why the work that I'd done on the film, that we'd done on the film, would be interesting to these huge brands. And then I quickly was schooled that there are Latinos working at those companies, A. And B, those companies have Latinos as customers. And so not only do they need to nurture their Latino employees, right? And build them into leaders, but they also need to appeal to their customer base. And frankly, many brands are still not doing that right, or they're
Mhm.
not doing it to the best of what's possible, and we can see it standing out and looking in like, wow, what an opportunity lost, or what a mistake they made. And you just know that there's not enough Latinos in the room making decisions and giving
Yes.
feedback that's valued. And that's terribly obvious to us. And so, for the most part, however, I was hired to speak about belonging. And what I focused on was the value collision in the difference between Latino culture and self reliant culture. And so, collectivism, the way that we're taught to be and to put family first, put the group first, the way that we live multi generationally, the way that we offer our respect to people, even if it's not deserved, frankly, and unearned.
Mhm.
The way that we're humble, we were talking about that before,
Mhm.
describing the way that we are as, as a whole, right? And so there's always going to be exceptions to the rule. And even though, sometimes people will say, oh, like Latinos, from different countries, we're all very different and distinct. And yes, that's true. And there is one common thread that we all share, and that is we value family above all. This
Mm.
is consistent no matter what, right?
Mhm.
And then there's some other sort of tenets to that. Another thing that we do that's very unique to us is we are especially the diaspora, right? And so we tend to look to the past to honor the present. And so you don't see a lot of Latinos accepting awards, for example,
Right.
without appreciating their parents, their grandparents, and everybody that came before them. There's a very typical Latino thing to do. And so you might have been at an event and seeing someone do that, thinking, oh, that's so nice that that person did that. No, the
Right.
actual whole culture, we all do that. We
Right.
all are very clear that we stand on the shoulders of others as we succeed in our lives today. That's a very unique to us behavior, and it collides with self-reliant culture, which is from Northern Europe and which focuses on the individual. And so and there's a whole set of rules there. Like, one that's really interesting is the squeaky wheel gets the grease. That saying, a lot of people know that saying. And so it's just like, basically, be annoying until they pay attention to you. Right.
Right.
um so that's something
That
that non-Latinos,
right.
like, they teach their kids, right? And
Uh-huh.
I teach my kids, even though my girls are Latinas, but I teach them that because it's important to know, no, you don't wait around for someone to tend to you. You have to advocate for yourself, and no one is going to hand anything to you. And if they do, that was the exception to the rule. And so, but get these two cultures together at work, for example, because those are the places that would hire me, workplaces in these Fortune 500 companies, and they're scratching their head wondering, why can't we retain our Latino leaders? Like, why can't we retain Latinos? Why can't the Latinas, why aren't they promoting at the same rate as their peers? Why, and so just trying to answer these questions and understand their own work culture. Then they would bring me in to start a conversation about that
Mhm.
values collision, because all of corporate America and all of higher education, all institutions are built on the self-reliant value system, which puts the individual at the center. So when we come into those systems and those institutions with our value systems, which values the group, which gives respect, unearned respect, which is kind of a
Mhm.
cool thing. Like, I'll
Right.
respect you because you're a human being, which I think is a very beautiful thing.
Right.
Which brings humility. Like, this isn't going to only be about me, and I'll be the first to say, I have accomplished everything that you shared in that bio of mine, but none of it did I do alone.
Right.
There's so many people involved in making sure those doors were opened for me, and that I was invited to those places. I did not accomplish any of that alone. And I also happen to think that that's a very beautiful quality, right? But in corporate America, you're supposed to act like you did do it all by
Right.
yourself.
Right.
You're supposed, like, you will actually get promoted if you can convince someone that of the lie that you did do it all
Yes.
yourself, right? And so that's where it clashes. And that's why we don't feel comfortable in corporate spaces. And this isn't, to me, this is so, like, I don't know why this isn't more obvious, right? But they bring me in to explain how this dynamic works so that they can create, restore, retain, and spaces of belonging. And so that's what's interesting. And then in some cases, and I wrote about this in the book, I was brought into an ad agency, for example, to help drive more Latinos to a certain product. And it
Uh,
was utilizing the value system, because sometimes, and I know you're probably very aware of this too, we all are, people think, oh, if you want to attract the Latinos, just have your commercials and your marketing be in Spanish. And that's a beautiful idea. And it is not true, right? If you want to attract our parents in their first language, of course, make it in Spanish. But if you want to attract the most wealthy segment of the Latino cohort, which is first gen Latinas, right? You need to speak in English.
Yes.
That's our first language. And so, but this came as a total surprise to my client. And so, to me, there's a lot of work that still needs to be done. And I'm passionate about this work. And that explains why those big corporations were bringing me in and still bring me in, and why some of the marketers also were bringing me in and continue to bring me in, because it's that collision that people are messing up with. They're not understanding what it costs them to not have this, they call it insights, right? And to not have this kind of cultural intelligence.
So you God, I love the way that you put it. And if I may comment as well, that is so true. And it's true in every, I want to say every industry, because for me, I came from the formal education. I worked for the Department of Education. I was on loan from my district here in San Diego into the Department of Education. And I was very instrumental in writing in the curriculum that was for a while there when we had a strong Department of Education in California. We had what was called a it was like a Bible. I want to say a Bible, right? The Bible
Yeah.
for middle schoolers. It was called Caught in the Middle.
Huh. Interesting.
And
Okay.
so we authored it, but when it first came out, I wasn't part of the first write.
Mm-hmm.
But the ones that were part of the first write were all white male men.
All white men trying to explain what that feels like to be caught in the middle. The absolute
Yes.
worst group to author that.
And
The
so
most out of touch with that reality.
exactly. And so when they pulled me in, it was, they pulled me in. It was just, they were having a meeting and they were having a discussion and they were like, well, how do we ask? Who do we ask? And so I happened to be walking by, the guy pulls me in and he says, we're trying to do this, just, would you blah, 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 and I was like, okay, I'll give my 2 cents. So
Yeah.
I said, go ahead and speak. And I'm like, that ain't no. And they were like, well, who are you? And I said, oh, well, I am just on loan because I have a bilingual bicultural credential and I've helped write the curriculum for my district. And
Yeah.
so I come from a school that I was an assistant principal at that is 85% Latino.
Uh-huh.
And so I said, so does that give me something? I mean, does that give me credibility to sit here at your table? And they were like, I said, and then it was like, and they were like, oh yeah, I guess so. And so then we were, then they allowed me in, but it was
Yeah.
almost like, you know, they weren't going to allow me in. Who is this woman? She doesn't have anybody other than the fact that she speaks Spanish fluently. And the only reason I speak Spanish so fluently is because my parents didn't want me to lose the Spanish. So they sent me to Mexico to study in summer times. So
Oh, wow.
I studied
That's
in
beautiful.
Universidad de las Americas and, in Cholula, Puebla, you name it, I have a litany. And so they were like, oh, okay, we'll let her in. But it was like,
Right.
yeah. And I don't know about you, but I still see that so often, not just in marketing, not just in corporate, but I see it even on social media, all the
Oh.
influencers and everybody. They're like, okay, we're just going to speak to, and they're
Mhm.
like, but we want to know. And then all the research is showing that if you don't wake up and embrace the Latino purchasing power,
Right.
that's where it goes. But
Yeah.
anyway, let me
Yeah.
ask you another question. Let's talk about high quality cultures. How do you define that? And
Yeah.
and what is
Mhm.
the most common maybe mistake that leaders make?
Well, a high quality culture is made up of people that are self-aware. And my husband just was talking to this guy just this morning, and apparently this guy is a coach, white guy coaching other white guys in corporate America. And he's like, so what did like, what do you see? Like, what are the commonalities? Like, what do you end up coaching them on the most? And this gentleman said that the biggest thing that was missing, oh, do you need to get that?
No, I need to stop that. I have it, believe it or not, I have it on do not disturb. You see?
That person really needs to get through.
And I don't even know where it's coming from, but so let me turn it
Okay.
down. Jesus Louises. I've never had that happen.
Huh.
That
Oh,
is
there
so
we go.
weird. Okay. All right.
So anyway, so my husband was talking to this gentleman who was a coach for mostly white males in corporate America who hire performance coaches and help them become better leaders. And my husband asked this gentleman, what's the common thread? What are you working on the most? Like, what do these guys need your help with? And the number one thing was self-awareness. And so that is, and it's like, wow, what a shocker. And like that, so not to be underestimated, right? Awareness of self and how the value system, if our value system were like a glasses that we wear every single day, as a self-awareness would be understanding that we're actually wearing glasses, and an ability to take them off and see things as they really are, not just through the lens that we're seeing them through, which is self-reliance, all about me, and collectivism, all about us. And so a high quality culture is when everyone in the room has an awareness that indeed they see the world through a certain lens, and a willingness to get into the get into the shoes of someone who maybe wasn't raised that way, and to find common ground. And because out of all the issues that I see in corporate after being out there for so long, the reason why people leave is because of that collision. And for example, the women, especially Latinas, we're just not raised to self advocate. And so we're not taught to ask for raises. We're not, like with my daughters right now, when we talk about their work in an ice cream shop, right? This is a small scale, but I know that these small scale conversations translate into the big ones when they're older, and, when they actually get work as adults. And self advocating is a muscle. And so when they get in trouble at work, or when they feel like they deserve a raise, or when they, what have you, situation comes up. When I was younger, I wasn't taught like, here, say this, do that, make sure this happens, keep me posted, let's circle back, right? Let mommy know what happened, and we're going to make sure that you have stood your ground on this, right? Uh, and why didn't that happen? Because my mom wasn't taught that either.
Yeah.
And so when we talk about not passing these things down, that's what we're talking about. And so actually having language to say, I wasn't born or raised to self-advocate. And self-advocating is a muscle. It's something that we can learn. And many first gen Latinas have no idea what we're doing, including me out there before I started this whole career, this part of my career 10 years ago. And so I didn't know how to say, this is what I've done, this is why I deserve the raise. Like, I didn't, to me, I should have just been grateful for the opportunity, right? That's what we're taught. Just be grateful that you have a great job with great benefits. And so, like, but what about if I want to like run the company? What about if I want to start a business? And, what about all of these other variables? Our parents just couldn't, they're at a loss. They couldn't teach us that. And it's not their fault. They were not taught those things either. And so a high quality culture is when people actually understand how the culture, the value system that they were raised in, and there's only two. There's variations on the theme, but there's only the world. I am the center of the world, and then the group is the center. There's only those two lenses on the planet. And so when you can identify which from which you come and how you see the world, that's going to inform the way that you believe people should behave, the way that the right and wrong. And the thing is that values clash. A girlfriend of mine is a therapist, and she says a values clash is the absolute hardest relationship related clash that we can have. And
Mm.
so it's the reason why people leave their jobs. And I believe that if we all, though, rise to the occasion, we all rise and we all say, not
Mhm.
just the self reliant, self reliant systems are the dominant systems. And so self reliant systems need to have the awareness, collective dominant systems need to have the awareness. When both systems care enough to know that the awareness of both systems is what will deliver like the best product, a successful company, retention like you've never seen before, that is a high quality culture. It's very aspirational and I believe very possible.
Wow, that's amazing. I love the way that you put that. It was so important. So let me give a little bit of a comment and in terms of that. When you talk about self advocate, I was not taught that. Even though my mom actually went to middle school here, high school, and then junior college, my mom didn't teach me that. What she in her way to teach me that was don't be afraid, don't be like me, I'm so afraid.
Mm.
And she
Mm.
will talk about a time. So my mom is we're more Spaniards than we are Mexican, or at least I did the DNA and all of that. So my
Hmm.
mom was blonde and blue eyed,
Hmm.
very light skinned, blonde and blue eyed. So one thing that she found, and I liken this, is that what she found is that when she was back in the day, she would be shuttled where all the other little blonde kids went, and all the little blonde, and she was a Spanish speaker. She did
Hmm.
not learn. She was afraid. She said she was afraid to learn English
Oh,
because
wow.
yeah, because uh, for some reason she thought that learning another language was going to annihilate the one that she had, which was interesting.
Oh.
So
Uh-huh.
yeah, that was very interesting. So so she passed on to me the fact that she didn't want me to be afraid. So she, like, when I was 4 years old, I was already in dance. I was the principal dancer. I was a singer. I was a accordion player. All of
I
this.
love it.
Besides the fact that I'm ADHD, right? She probably tried to figure that out. How can I keep her, right? Because she wasn't going to put me on Ritalin, even though I noticed one time the doctor, when she was passing, you go through all the papers, right? And there was something there
Yeah.
that said your little 4-year-old needs to be on Ritalin, and I'm going like, the good thing mom didn't put me on that. So,
Uh-huh.
but self advocation. Here's what I find as a college educator, and it just gives credence to everything you said. There is what I find the kids are struggling. Some of these are second generation now. They're struggling with the self advocating, what I call the self advocating struggle, because they're thinking that it's being super aggressive,
Right.
almost to the point of, where aggression can turn into something negative. and
Yes.
and and I see that a lot, even in my coaching practice. When I'm coaching somebody, there was this young lady, and she's defending the person that's the head of the group, and she's out here admonishing all the people that write whatever they write in this chat. And I'm like, wait a minute, this is not your chat, and the way
Hmm.
that she's doing it is not a correct way to do it. It's not a When you speak, you have to let it land, and you have to know how your words are going to land. And that's what I think is the hardest thing in the self advocacy thing, is
Yeah.
because they're not aware of how their voices, number one, your voice, your intonation, your words are going to land. And I think
Yeah, and they're
big gap.
yeah, right. And I what you said there is so fascinating, and I definitely address this in my book, which is that contorted relationship that we have to self advocacy and also getting out of hand and being aggressive. Like these things, for whatever reason, travel together in our little Latina minds. And I don't know if it's in my case, I saw my dad, very angry guy for most of my life. My dad died when I was 13 years old, and he had a problem with rage.
Oh,
And so he got what he wanted when he was in his rage moments, right? And so I don't know if that is a common thread for young women to see that if I when I'm speaking up for myself, I'm afraid it's going to be perceived that I'm really angry or rageful, or that I might have to get that way to get what I want. I'm
right,
sure though there's a relationship,
right.
and what I know for sure is that that is a weird way that in our that we have contorted this thing because we simply haven't had the guidance, the
Mm-hmm.
guidance to say this is how you do it. And it's best described like a tennis match. You say this and let the ball go to the other side, then they will say some version of something X, Y, or Z, and then the ball will go to your side, and then you say this until it's a win-win, right?
Right.
But we don't get that modeled. And again, it's not anyone's fault. It's just like going to the gym and not knowing, going to the gym and needing a personal trainer versus going there ourselves and just spending all the time on the treadmill when there's all of these weights that can help us get strong in different areas. If we spend all of our time in the treadmill, we're just going to get our cardio. But we might need a trainer to come and say, hey, you can do lunges, you don't need weights, but then now here's when you do. And that's all we need. And I don't mean to be reductionist by simplifying it that to that state, but it is a good metaphor because it was an absent lesson, right?
Mhm. Right.
And it there's hope though. We can teach our daughters something different.
Right. Agreed. Totally agreed. Okay. Now I'm going to change this because I'm going to put you on the spot right here. We've been talking about everything that's in your book, but I know something that's not in your book that you're really good at, and that is coaching Latina authors or Latina women who think they have something to say but haven't had the courage to do it. So, talk to me about, you know, coaching these women, and what would you say to let's say there's a Latina right now listening, a mujerpreneur. I call them mujerpreneurs because
I
a lot
love
of
that.
times that when they write a book like myself, I did not realize. I mean, I knew I was an entrepreneur because of things I sell and things I created, like this little mug, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm an entrepreneur, but a lot of Latinas that I'm working with right now don't realize that the moment that they write the book, they are a mujerpreneur. They
Mm-hmm.
don't realize that they got to go out there and they've got to be, like you said, self advocate and do all of that stuff and market it,
Yeah.
and try to get yourself on stages and all of that. So they don't know that. So, what would you say to somebody like that? And how would you coach somebody? And do you love coaching?
Yeah, I love coaching. I love coaching Latinas, and I have a very strong awareness as to what holds us back specifically. It doesn't mean that I don't understand other women from other cultures, but I tend to be more effective inside of our own. And yeah, I don't typically talk about my coaching for a whole bunch of reasons, and I'm finding it lately to be. Um, I'm going to say like an error in judgment because it is something that I do love. It's not something that I'm able to do as much as I'd like to. And I also have group programs that I would love for more people to join so that they can get the benefit of what I've learned over the last, and this is beyond the 10 years. This is like 30 years of my life. The, and what I would say is the kind of work that I do, I do strategy work with my clients. Um, And I would say that's 20%, 80% is mindset,
Mm.
because we bring our set of things, and we talk about money a lot, especially in my group programs and also in my one-on-ones. It comes up a lot, as it should, right?
Mm.
And you would be so surprised, or maybe not, how much the cultural values seep in to our money conversations, and a lot about what we believe we deserve, and what um like what to price things at, what to give away. And because we're a culture that likes to take care of itself, which I think is also very beautiful. And
Mhm.
so there's a lot of like negotiating with, well, I want to be able to give a certain amount of my work away, but then I also have this incredibly valuable business idea or product or service that is valued in the marketplace. And so how should I price that? And it's surprising when we talk about money and the going rates of things, how
Mhm.
hard it is for Latinas to allow themselves to price even at market rate, let
Mhm.
alone be the premium version, because there's always like the people that charge what everyone charges. Like, let's just use a Starbucks coffee, for example. And I'm just going to say they're $5, right? Even though, and so my drink at Starbucks is about $5 and change. My daughter's drink at Starbucks is like $7 and change. That's like a premium drink with like all the pumps of whatever.
Right.
And then there's like the whatever Americano, which is probably like $1, $2. And so that's how people, in my experience, Latinas price somewhere between the lowest price and the market rate, somewhere between that.
Mm.
Getting them to market rate to premium, like best in class, like expert in their field, is so hard, even when they are the smartest people in the room.
Yeah.
And so my expertise is helping women get to at least market rate, that's the floor, but moving to premium to be a match for their actual skills and talents.
Mm. Right. Wow, that's amazing. Yes, and I love it. So we'll talk. I'm gonna hook up with you to talk about coaching and and all of that good stuff. I love coaching. I've been a coach for I don't know how long, but what I want to ask you this one question. You in your book, what would be the biggest takeaway that you would love to have the Latinas take away when they're done, when they finally close the back cover?
Yes. Okay. So there are two things. The first is something that came to me while I was writing the book. My life fell apart at the seams. And when I say it fell apart, my financial well being fell apart. After the new administration came in, most of my income was in DEI budgets, and as those budgets got eliminated, and whole departments were eliminated, and whole words weren't even allowed to be said out loud, and my word was belonging. There are some companies that I worked with that weren't even allowed to say that they have say the word out loud, belonging. And so I lost over $200,000 in business, and
Wow.
it was a catastrophic loss in my life. And the thing is, I'm 55 years old, and I had been working steadily in this world for, it's been 10 years now. And as related to my film, like my film came out 10 years ago. And so in
Mhm.
this kind of chapter of my life called I work with the Latino diaspora. I'm a first gen expert. I speak about belonging as it pertains to these two colliding value systems, et cetera, that just kind of went down the toilet. And so I had to rebuild, but I also had this book deadline, and I allowed myself for the very first time to experience anger in a way that I'd never experienced it before. I'd never allowed myself to experience anger. And so
Mhm.
we, I don't know about you, but I was taught to contain my big feelings, my
Mhm.
big passions, my big enthusiasm, right? That can be considered positive. but also my anger. And I was pissed when slowly but surely I lost all of this income. It didn't happen overnight, it happened over time. And so I just continued to be optimistic that this next gig was going to happen, the deposits were going to come in, and then they just all canceled over a long period of time. So it was devastating for us.
Yeah.
And we had to move from our very beautiful home in one area of town to another area of town. And the interesting thing about it, and this I write about in the book, is that I'd always wanted to live on the part of town that I live in now, and
Mm.
it's called Wash Park, Washington Park, um, but everybody calls it Wash Park, and it's always been the place I've wanted to live. And the ironic thing was is that we decided to move to this side of town because it was walking distance to my daughter's school, and my
Mm.
husband and I had only ever had one car, and my husband started driving Uber, and so he needed the mornings with the car so that he could get to make his money for the day. And so he couldn't we needed to save the time that we were driving across town to get the girls to school. So we're like, okay, we're going to look in Wash Park, but it's always been cost prohibitive to live here. However, we found a basement apartment, um, but it was 800 square feet. And we're a family of four with two animals. And this place had two bedrooms. And the irony is that the house was on the periphery of the park. And so it's kind of like oceanfront property, like you
Wow.
leave your house, you're right in front of the park. Except for our house, it was like we have to walk up the steps because we were living in the basement. And
Right.
so I was taking a walk every day at that time to calm my nerves and my nervous system. And that's a promise I had kept at that point for a few months. And I was kind of working out my anger and doing, my breathing exercises, listening to positive things, envisioning a brighter future, and also being really upset. I cried a lot on those walks.
Mm. Mhm.
And so I left my house one morning and I was so frustrated. And I got, walked up the steps, walked through this beautiful wooden gate, and it slams behind me. I get to the sidewalk in like 2.2 seconds, and it's just sunrise. Like it's just like the sun is just rising over the park, and people are jogging. It's green and lush. It was last summer, green and lush, and hardly any cars driving on the street that's between me and the park. And the sprinklers are going. And like when the sun hits the sprinklers just right, and you can just
Yes.
see like the million particles of water, and it just feels like magic, right? Except for I was really mad. And so I'm angry, and I'm also looking at like the wonder of life and like the beauty in front of me. And it like all comes to me. I can be both powerful and unfinished. I don't have to forget everything that I've done. That whole bio that you read did happen. I am
Mm.
her. And my life is an absolute shambles right now. And I can still coach people from here. I can
Mhm.
still work from here. I can still write this book from here. But
Mhm.
I had to like do this. Like I had to say, I can
Mhm.
be both. And so if there's a single lesson I would want to leave any Latina watching, is that you don't have to wait for your version of enough, or your or to get the certification or to get the degree or to finally be over something or to finally stop being afraid. You don't have to wait. You can be unfinished. You can still be working on yourself and also source that power within you that is eternal and that you have proof of.
Right. So important. So important. God, so heartfelt. Yeah, and
Thank you.
I saw the colors behind you. So yeah, you went through a litany of things. But Denise,
Yeah.
thank you so much. Gracias, gracias, gracias,
Oh,
gracias. From my heart to yours for sharing
thank
your
you.
journey with us today. And hermosas, if you love this episode, please share it out because you need to help us to to gather to build our community of Latina leaders. I mean, the reason that I whole started this podcast was to leave a legacy of Latina leaders behind me so that when I left, they would say, Marti, because of you, I didn't quit. Right.
Oh, I
And
love
so
that.
we please share this episode out. No, no se la
And
guarden. Por favor,
and
ayúdenla.
and
And
this is the book. This
share.
is what the book looks like.
Yes,
And it's
and
also in Spanish too.
está en español y está en inglés. Keep it up, keep it up. Keep them up.
Okay.
So está en
Boom.
español que dice, que dirán, what will they say? And it is going to be on Amazon on the 18th, which is
Oh, is
only,
that actually?
is
It's
it?
on Amazon right now. Yes. And actually
okay.
now is the most critical time to buy the book. It would help me so much to have the book pre-ordered. And that is actually a measuring stick that a lot of people don't know. I was just up in the mountains with friends on a family vacation, and I was there with my one girlfriend who's a writer, and she knows how publishing works, and the other friend who had no idea how it worked. And she was like, Denise, I had no idea that pre-orders are so important. And so for everyone's information, not just for my book, but literally any book, if you want to support the author, pre-order their book and pre-order the hardcover of their book. That is the one that gets counted for the New York Times bestseller list, for the USA bestseller list, for all the bestseller lists. It's the hardcover book, and it's how they measure success kind of going in, and how they determine marketing and investing decisions. And the reason why that's so important for this book very specifically is because it's written by a Latina for Latinas. And I just saw this really awesome reel, and it's like living rent free in my mind. And it's this white woman. She talks about writing and publishing, and I think she's some kind of coach. And she did this reel that is it's popping off big time. And she said, when male writers write books, everybody buys their books. Women of color, other men, and women all buy their books. When women write books, women buy those books, and women of color buy those books. When women of color write books, the only people that buy their books are other women of color. White women do not buy their books. White men do not buy their books. And this is like research that she had found, but we all know that rings true. We all know that sounds about right.
Wow.
And so I'm going in writing a book. Not only am I Latina, right? But I'm not writing a mainstream book. I'm writing a book that's literally for Latinas. Like it literally says a liberating guide for Latinas. And people said, why are you just relegating this to Latinas? Well, it's because this is my community. These are the women that I want to help. These are my people. And so I'm asking you, those of you who are watching or listening, will you please support me? Will you support this book? And I will also say, support all Latina authors, because we all need that support. And if we have the smallest group of support, and so we must show up for each other. And so thank you so much for allowing me to be on your podcast.
Oh, yes. And then can we say something about podcasts too? This is something that a lot of people don't know. And I've been thinking about, maybe you can join me when we'll collaborate, because I'm all about collaboration, not competition. But if you're listening to this podcast and it resonated with you, please download it, share it out, because the algorithm actually activates when that episode is downloaded, not when you listen to it. The listens don't really count, but what really counts is downloaded. So I always say, download the episode, share it out if you loved it, and if you didn't love it, download it and throw it away. Right? We got to get around somehow, right? We got to get that algorithm on our side, right?
I love it. That's great. I didn't know that. Thanks for sharing that.
Oh, yeah. So thank you so much, everybody. Gracias por estar aquí. Gracias. Today was an amazing, I want to tell you guys all that I was so freaking nervous since yesterday. And I woke up with nervous energy because, I felt like she is so passionate, such a big name in our Latina culture. And what we need to do as Latinas, lo que necesitamos hacer es ayudarnos, apoyarnos, seguirnos, amarnos al último,
Oh,
right?
oh,
So
thank you.
thank you, thank you, thank you. Everybody, thank you for watching. I am so incredibly grateful to you, my listeners and watchers. Make sure you check the show notes below because Denise's links to both the book and something else she's got for you is going to be in the show notes. If you're watching us live on the Coach Marti Angel YouTube channel, make sure you look at the links in the description below. As always,
Awesome.
have an incredible day, everybody. Namaste.